Greetings and welcome. I am Justavor, bringing you what I hope is constructive information on what the system of racism is and how it works, as well as what can be done to replace it with the system of justice. Non-white females and white sororities, Greek life, no sisterhood. In this video, we have a look at the question recently asked as to why some sororities on major college and university campuses in the so-called United States tend to be lacking non-white female members while simultaneously consuming and utilizing what is considered black culture. The question that comes to mind is, how can sisterhood between white and non-white females exist in a system of white supremacy racism? I think that it would be best that we begin by giving a definition we use for the terms racism and white supremacy, which is a global system of people who classify themselves as white and who are dedicated to the mistreatment and subjugation of all those they have classified as not white. This issue has been discussed countless times over a number of years. However, recently this conversation has once again become a focus of a sort on social media, beginning with this suspected racist male asking the question to both white females and their non-white victims.
Are sororities only filled with blonde white girls? I've come across Rush videos on TikTok and all of them receive the same comments like, loving the diversity, attack of the clones, where is the seasoning? As a third culture kid who never understood American Greek life and someone who cares about bridging communities, I went to USC's Greek Row to talk with students about diversity.
I am just not sure if I'm allowed to.
I feel like that might be a little controversial, so I just don't want to spoil anything.
We're not. We're supposed to refer.
We love censorship.
I was shocked how nobody would talk to me about this important topic.
It appeared that this male suspect attempted to give his female counterparts the opportunity to defend themselves against suspicions of practicing white supremacy, only to be met with the codified responses of the white no snitching policy.
I am just not sure if I'm allowed to.
I feel like that might be a little controversial, so I just don't want to spoil anything.
We're not. We're supposed to refer.
We love censorship.
The only suspected racist woman to apparently speak to him in depth when asked why there isn't more diversity in the so-called Greek life sororities, she was more than willing to do some victim blaming.
We can't really help it if people of color or who aren't heteronormative don't rush, but we want to create a safe space in case they do.
The white woman's victim blaming tactic reminds me of the responses typically heard when white people are asked why their businesses don't hire non-white people, and their responses are along the lines of saying that they would hire someone, but no non-white people apply for the job. This suspected racist woman is saying that the lack of so-called diversity is due to non-white people choosing not to be a part of their sororities. But why would non-white females choose to stay away? What are their experiences like when they do apply and try out for these institutions?
So I was a sophomore at the University of Alabama when this whole integration thing happened. I was also an RA in Tutwiler, which is the big sorority dorm. This is a combination of what the news says and also what we heard. Essentially, there were two black girls who wanted to get into the Panhellenic sororities, and they had perfect scores by definition. One of them in particular, which I know her, I'm not going to name her. When it came time for them to get voted on for bids, their names magically disappeared from the list. We also heard rumors about how the alumni did not want those girls to get in. They threatened to pull their donations to the sororities. We're talking multi-million-dollar sorority houses, everything at UA. It got a lot of news, so much news and so much pressure that Dr. Bonner, who was the university president at the time, basically told these sororities and fraternities they have to change how they do their bidding process to be more inclusive, because it was super exclusive always.
What happens when these sororities finally open their doors to be more inclusive? The racism disappears, right?
Okay, so I'm going to share with you my experience on sorority rush. And I did rush, and literally it was one of the most traumatic things I've been through. Maybe that's Daisy, your life was not that traumatic, but it really destroyed my self-esteem and self-confidence. So let me tell you about it. In the top sororities, there's always a token diversity girl who, is the token Asian girl, African American girl, whatever, the token spice girl. But a lot of it, like the first thing they looked for in sororities was connections. So if your dad is a Fortune 500 CEO, like of course you're gonna get into the top sororities. If you come from very old money or a wealthy family and you went to the right private schools, like the Gossip Girl private schools, like that would put you in the top sorority. If, I don't know, you just had something like very, very like statusy about you, you would be in the top sororities. But if you're just like a regular girl from, you know, a public high school like I was, no shot. And it was just such a superficial process. You would go through sorority rush and then everybody like behind closed doors would start just talking about the worst things about you. I honestly like would not recommend my daughter doing it, like going through rush, unless she really wanted to, but I wouldn't put her through that. And I would say it was traumatic because at such a young age, 18, 19 years old, where you think like you're the shit, you think you're pretty, you think you're smart, you realize that you are nothing unless you come from these families, and that all of your worth is really based on status. Either status as to what school you went to, what family you came from, and also how you look. So yeah, it was just a terrible experience. I recommend it to nobody.
Apparently, the racism does not disappear. Instead, as suspected white supremacists are known to do, these suspects attempt to refine their practices of white supremacy, which tend to result in one or more of the 3 T's: tacky, trashy, or terroristic. But isn't that how the tactic of racial showcasing confusion often goes?
It doesn't get any better than tacky.
If you have seriously studied the system of white supremacy, then you have become less confused enough to learn that when suspected white supremacists refine their practices of racism, they tend to act as if racism is being or has been solved. Not all suspects will follow this method. Some suspects will still admit when racism is being practiced, though this is often done with some degree of deception, falsehood, pretense, etc. Just as some white people are willing to at least admit that voids who suspect racism within these suspected white supremacist institutions are indeed correct in their suspicions.
After looking at hundreds of sorority Bama Rush talk videos, I found it incredibly entertaining that they use Black music, they'll use Black dance trends, but these predominantly white sororities, some of them don't have any Black members, but they have no problem using Black culture to recruit their members. This to me is comical.
Yes, Stacy, but what have you done that has replaced the system of white supremacy with the system of justice? Justice meaning balance between people, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. For a more in-depth analysis of why and how those who practice white supremacy, racism, throughout recent history consume the bodies and energies of non-white people, particularly those classified as Black, I suggest reading The Delectable Negro, Human Consumption and Homoeroticism Within U.S. Slave Culture by Vincent Woodard. What are your thoughts? Can there be real sisterhood, or even brotherhood for that matter, between those who classify themselves as white and those they have classified as not white, while the global system of white supremacy exists? For more information about the purpose and goals of this channel, as well as some basic definitions of words and terms we use in reference to our work, I have included a link below to a video containing this information. If you would like an even better understanding of the code and how it works, please visit ProduceJustice.com to order the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. There are many constructive suggestions for ending the system of white supremacy, and Mr. Fuller's codebook and its word guide act as guides to getting and keeping on code. If you feel this content is constructive and worth your time and energy, please subscribe and share to support the making of more content in the future. Much appreciation to all the Vors already subscribed. I am Justavor, and I'm still learning. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.